Hey Marta, how you doing?
Good, Vic. What's going on?
Oh, not too much. I heard through a little birdie told me that we're into modern day marine season. I actually let me say it wasn't a bird because it's way too cold outside for a bird to actually, but maybe I got a tweet or something. I just get a disconnect. But yeah, we're in modern day marine season now, right?
We are in modern day marine season. And if I actually woke up last night, true story. I woke up last night thinking about my to-do list for modern day marine. So it's just so your listeners know, I'm the Marine Corps Association's lead planner for modern day marine, and the to-do list in my brain is like, on constant. So I
Yeah,
woke up. So that's how I know. Birdies or no birdies, I know because I woke up in the middle of the night sort of dreading my
yeah.
to-do list for modern day. It's right around the corner and we are pumped.
Yeah, your brain is just one really long PowerPoint presentation. You're just thinking in slide decks at
It's
this point.
it's really it's yeah. So between now and Showtime, Expo time on April 28th this year, that's pretty much what I'm going to be thinking about. What I'm going to be thinking about. Well, and you're going to be there too. Scuttlebutt's going to be there.
There are. Yeah, no, this is it's so rad. I love the way that Emerald has set us up. The location is great. Obviously, being on the showroom floor for something, that what the Marine Corps is doing here, the Marine Corps Association, the Marine Corps League, everything that's coming together. It's there's an audible and an emotional buzz from just being on the floor. So it's so fun. And just being able to talk to the guests that we have and just snatch some people off the showroom floor, like, hey, you look interesting. Let's have a chin wag or whatever. So fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. So to your Scuttlebutt listeners, swing by the Scuttlebutt podcast booth and maybe you'll be interviewed. Maybe Vic will snatch you up.
Yeah. If you make eye contact, there's a good chance you're getting on a microphone. So we're looking at April 28th through May 1st. Is that correct?
Through April
Oh,
30th. It's
30th.
a
Okay.
3-day, yep, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center. And we're going to be, this is our fifth year up in DC. So if you're an old crusty Marine, you might remember the muddy boot days down. You don't even actually even have to be that old to remember the old muddy boot days down in Quantico. But we moved up to the convention center 5 years ago and we haven't looked back. It's been fantastic. We're able to do so much more with that space that it's really remarkable. This year we have about seven additional conferences and symposia adjacent to modern day marine. So we have, like we have the log comms hosting an AI symposium and a hackathon. We have UAS, counter UAS symposium that's interacting with symposia. We have the Reserve Leadership Collective that is gathering reserve officers to talk about the future of the reserves. I mean, it's really becoming what we envisioned it to be when the commandant moved it up there, which is a place for learning and thinking and future thought. It really truly is doing that. I'm so excited, so excited. 5 stages.
Yeah.
We've got,
No,
yes,
it's
it's great.
the amount of Tetris skill that went into putting the showroom floor together is really, really impressive. And all of the events are so cool. Key leader engagements, like you said, all of the symposiums, the events, and there's a new term now for what we were doing.
Oh, Small Business Industry Day, and now it's
Yeah,
Marine Corps. Yeah, it's contracts industry day. You know what's really great about it is that we have something for everyone. If you're a young Marine officer or a young Marine just kind of getting into it and wondering where you want to go with your MOS, we probably have something on the floor for you to handle and explore,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or if you want to know how to handle your career, we've got Manpower and Reserve Affairs there. They're gonna, they're exhibiting. If you're wondering about the future of the Marine Corps strategically, we've got briefs for that. I mean, we really are this nexus of information for Marines. And then, leaders, senior leaders and defense industry partners. I mean, that's where they go and they show off their wares and they say, hey, look, you wanted this widget with this little doodad. That's the extent of my
No, that's technical. I think that's right off a lot of the, the
Yeah,
doctoral
the
comics.
manuals. Yeah. In fact, yes, the widget with the doodad. Um, I'm married to an active duty Marine, and he loves to go because uh, he- the briefs alone are great. Like you'll hear from EWS students, command and staff students, staff and CI Academy students. They will come and do their TED Talks on their research projects. It's great information. It's phenomenal all the way around. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too.
Anxious, but excited.
And for all of those who are just as excited as us, we can start registering now, right?
Holy cow. Yes. Registration's open. And let me tell you, if you've ever been to Modern Day Marine and have registered before, we have an entirely new experience for you. It is so smooth and seamless. You're going to love it. So yeah, registration's open now. Get on there and register. We'd love to see you.
And if you're active duty, it's free of charge, right?
Free of charge. Free to active duty and military spouses.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Price is right. Price is
The
right.
price is right. Free 99.
That's right. So, yeah, come on, Walter E. Washington Convention Center in D.C., April 28th through the 30th. And yeah, come say hi. I'll be there. So come by the booth and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Vic. Yeah, sounds great. See you then.
See you then.
Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Welcome to episode 230. This week, we welcome retired Master Gunnery Sergeant Adam Walker back to the show. Adam is on deck to talk to us about the Marine Corps' new E-8 Redesignation pilot program, which gives Master Sergeants and First Sergeants a one-time option to lat move between E-8 designations. Adam helps us understand the career progression for senior enlisted Marines, namely what happens when a Gunnery Sergeant is promoted, the differences between a First Sergeant and a Master Sergeant, how the Marine Corps views its E-8s differently from the other services, and the significance of this policy change. Talking with Adam is always a lot of fun and super informative. This is a unique opportunity to see behind the curtain on how Marines are promoted and how this program addresses two of the primary things Marines are opposed to: how things are and change. You can also catch more of Adam's wit and insight in his reoccurring segment, Tales from the Smoke Pit in Leatherneck Magazine. Shameless plug, I know, but it's definitely worth checking out. This is episode 230.
Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Thank you for joining us and your continued support. I'm Vic. I'm here with Nancy.
Hey, Vic. How you doing?
And we're really excited to be welcoming Adam Walker, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant, back to the show. Adam, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So before we start recording, obviously, we're just getting caught up. The big news around the Mid-Atlantic is the snow, and
And the cold.
the ice. Yeah, I think we're gonna get hammered with another cold spell with high winds. And then Adam, you guys are shut down. You guys are iced in, right?
Yeah, we got about 12 inches down here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and Camp Lejeune was shut down Monday through Wednesday, and then was a 2-hour delay on Thursday and Friday because, that amount of snow doesn't sound like much to some people, but down here it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
It's a big deal.
It's a huge event. I think it was like something like 1986, the last time they had a snow like this.
Well, you guys don't have the infrastructure really either. We were talking like plows and like budgets and stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we don't have nothing like that.
Yeah.
No.
E-tools.
Yeah.
Also coming up, we're recording. We got the Super Bowl about to happen this weekend. I don't know. Is this gonna muck up your guys' Super Bowl plans down there in North Carolina? Like everybody's in, it's on the solo.
I don't know. Honestly, I'm probably the worst guy to ask because I don't watch any sports. I mean, I'm the kind of guys like, oh, Super Bowl? Oh, who's playing?
Yeah. That's actually how I was. Even though I grew up loving football all my life. I've walked away from the NFL and college football. So I was
Same.
the same thing. I was like, well, clearly we all know what's going on with the halftime show. Like that, no one can stop talking about that. But actually, who's playing the game? I'm not fully.
I don't know about any of it. I have no idea. I don't know where it's being played. I don't remember who's playing. and I have no idea who this halftime show performer is. Could
Yeah,
somebody
well, well, yeah. Considering like 75% of my house is Puerto Rican, I definitely know that Bad Bunny is doing the
okay.
the
I
halftime show. But yeah, so the Super Bowl itself, exciting and
is it?
yeah. Well, I think both the quarterbacks like super baby faced, which is really strikes home for me. So I'm definitely a fan of baby faced quarterbacks.
I'm looking it up right now so I can have some
Yeah, I think it's
inkling
Seattle and
of.
New England.
Oh,
The
okay.
Patriots last year, I think, were like a dead last. And now, so I guess if they win the Super Bowl, it'll make history that no team went from worst to first.
Oh, and they're going to be in Santa Clara, California at
Mm,
Levi's Stadium.
that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we got going on here, y'all.
I'm more of an Olympics fan myself.
Oh, have you been tuning in to the winter or your summer or both?
No.
One
I mean,
of
not
the
yet, but usually I do. Actually, I do. I love to watch the Olympics, and I'm not even kidding you. I love curling in the winter. I love to
they
watch
started
that.
off with it already, right? Didn't
It is
curling
the
already?
greatest.
Yeah. Is that a Wisconsin thing? I'm being 100% serious. Did you guys do curling? And
No, I never
oh,
did. I never did, although I'm not, about to embarrass myself on the podcast, but I did. So for us, ice skating was not at a rink. It was just on the pond behind
right.
somebody's
You're-
house.
yeah.
And so I can very vividly remember in the 1970s, going out there with my friends with my ice skates on, and we would pretend that we were, Olympic figure skaters. We did we did our own like mini Olympics. Speed skating was very big too because at that time the top U.S. speed skaters were from West Allis, Wisconsin.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, which is near Milwaukee. So
Yeah. That's interesting. So speaking of figure skating, I don't know his name, but which I should. Because I'm trying to make this point. He's from the town that I live in. He's from Vienna, Virginia. Yeah, and I guess he's just doing like he's the Michael Jordan of figure skating right now. Like he's just doing things that people didn't think were like humanly possible. Like Triple Lindy and whatever from Rodney Dangerfield
Triple
from
Lindy.
Back to School.
Oh my gosh. Adam, aren't you glad you joined us today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm kind of out of my league here. It's funny because not only do I not observe sports, but I never really played sports. And people kind of assume, like, you're in the Marines. But I used to tell people, I say, yeah, I'm physically fit. I'm not athletic. And I think that's what led to me not participating in sports and then never like watching or being interested in sports. So many years ago, it was Super Bowl weekend and my buddies were having a party and they're like, hey, we got to invite Adam over. And I was like kind of surprised, and then they're like, yeah, we need somebody in the kitchen making snacks.
That's awesome.
They're like, bring your apron, Adam.
Yeah. We know you gotta like the game, but
Yeah.
Do you have a strong snack game?
I'm a pretty good cook. I mean,
Okay.
at my first in high school, I worked in a kitchen for like 3.5 years, and so I very proudly went from being a dishwasher to being the assistant weekend night manager.
Whoa.
Nice. Very
Which meant,
nice.
yeah, they're like, hey, just give this kid a key so he can lock up a week and I'll go home. So that's really what that was. But I enjoy cooking though. I mean, it's it's just simple domestic fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's hilarious that they had that. It was kind of like if you have the buddy that doesn't drink,
Yeah.
you're always asking him to come with you because you got the designated driver.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, just last thought on this is when I joined the Marine Corps, I played sports in college and stuff. Not that I'm like super athletic, but I kind of thought that along the same lines of what you did. It's like, oh, I'm going into the Marine Corps. This is like the professional sports of the military. Like, of course, and then of course there's like Top Gun. Like, of course, everybody can do beach volleyball. Like, that's what we do, right? Like, with jeans on and no shirt.
Tags,
That's how it works. And then the first time I did platoon PT, I was like, let's do a basketball tournament. Oh my God. I don't even think we made it through a single game of 3-on-3 to 5 points. Like it was, two-hand dribbling, ball just going everywhere, fights were it was ridiculous. Like kind of like you said, like these guys are super fit. They don't have any coordination.
Hey, I can run all day, I can carry stuff, but like if there's a ball involved, it's terrible.
Okay, well, speaking of Marines and having to do gymnastics, one of the things, and as we were talking before we started recording, is that it's really good that Nancy's here because we'll actually be able to get a non-cult member's viewpoint on the Marine Corps promotion system. We really recently had a chance to look over this article from the Marine Corps Gazette, shameless plug, from back in December of 2005 by Master Gunner Sergeant Barry Walker. And the article is titled "Why a Two-Track Promotion System is the 9999 MOS Outdated." And so it was really, really great. Nancy was like, if we're going to talk this piece, we need to, have Adam Walker on, obviously retired Master Gunnery Sergeant and just hilarious individual.
And let me jump in and say the thing that got me thinking about it is in the upcoming March issue of Leatherneck, we have a short piece about this new program that's offering a career transition from so somebody has just moved over from Master Sergeant to First Sergeant, and so that got me thinking we need to...
to provide some context, and then obviously Adam, please jump in. But the way it has always worked, and of course it's always worked because we're Marines, is when you are as a gunnery sergeant, you put on your fitness report whether you want to go Master Sergeant or First Sergeant, and then through the infinite wisdom of a promotion board, you get selected to one or the other, and then you're stuck. So kind of the from the officer side, from the zero side, it was the overly simplified explanation was, well, if you want to be more technical, you're going to be a Master Sergeant. You'll stay in your MOS, and you've got that MOS cred. And if you want to do more mag taffery, then you go First Sergeant, and then you have to deal a lot more with the admin side of the house and promotion and that kind of thing. And then obviously then Master Sergeants become Master Gunnery Sergeants, and First Sergeants become Sergeants Major. Adam, did I?
Yeah, and when this MAR admin came out, it's called the E-8 redesignation. And so my first thought when that came out was going back to this article from 2005. So now, incidentally, I'm retired Master Gunny Adam Walker. This article was written by a retired Master Gunny named Barry Walker, no relation. But the guys from my generation and those preceding me, they know these two. They were twin brothers, Barry and Terry Walker. Terry Walker was a gunner. Yeah, Terry Walker was a gunner, and Barry Walker was a Master Gunny. And when this article came out in 2005, I was a young gunny, and this was a very I'll say divisive and a very kind of hot topic because the subtitle is the 9999 MOS outdated. First off, kind of an admin note, the MOS is now called 8999, the Senior Enlisted Advisor, but in that day and preceding all through the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was called 9999. Same thing. It was a MOS for First Sergeants and Sergeants Majors. So this article was very divisive, but he was just bringing up, and folks can go look up this article. He was just bringing up, why do we have a two-track promotion system? But I'm really reminded too that there's only two things Marines don't like: the way things are and change. So even as we kind of get into this and kind of talk about the points of it, it can be very divisive because what's that phrase? You guard your rice bowls, right? So you don't whatever camp or community or side of the the opinion that you fall on, people get very defensive about this. And so, but really, we should be able to have an open conversation about do we have the right system? Not like I am insulting you because this is the path that you are on, or I'm insinuating that you're not relevant, which is I think how people take it.
Yeah, I definitely, and it's almost as if and it's because I think so much of what some of the greatness of being a Marine and having a core of Marines is that we identify so at such a personal level with the institution and with each other. Of course, there's a ton of pride in being in saying, "Hey, I'm a Marine," but I think that there's a greater sense of it where we're like, well, but we're a Marine Corps, and I love the Marine Corps, and I love my other Marines, and so there's just such this a sense of communal identity as well as individual that yes, like you're saying, Adam, as soon as I had sort of even criticize something that you would also hold, one of the tiers would be your job in that core. If I start to question it or even criticize the way that you got it, it somehow potentially invalidates your raison d'etre, like
Yeah.
your whole reason for even being there. Anyhow, um, well, I guess to go a little bit further than with what Nancy was talking about is, and Adam, I definitely want you to weigh in on this, is that one of the proposed changes, and it seems like it's already underway, would be that decision you make as a gunnery sergeant is no longer etched in stone. That you could somehow, like almost like a lat move over if you decided as a first sergeant you wanted to be a master guns or as a vice versa. Is that
Yeah.
right?
And really, a gunner sergeant has three choices, right? Or he has three potential career paths. So he could become a gunner sergeant, could become a master sergeant, could become a first sergeant, or could become a warrant officer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then if someone says, well, I really love my MOS, I want to stay technical. Well, then they decide, well, do I want to be a master sergeant or a warrant officer and a chief warrant officer? So, and they do have different roles, but they are both roles that stay within a particular MOS or community. And so, it can be confusing because you got to say, well, what do I think I would be most effective at, and also what would I enjoy the most? When I was a gunny, I think like a lot of people from my generation, I had envisioned myself becoming a first sergeant and sergeant major, but serving in an infantry company, in an infantry battalion. So that's kind of just what I kind of envisioned. But I had the opportunity when I was a gunny, I was working as a monitor. And so I got a lot of mentorship from a lot of senior staff NCOs. And I remember the sergeant major at the time was this really old guy named Gary Weiser, who was just really intimidating guy, but a really brilliant Marine. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And I told him, hey, I'd like to be a rifle company, infantry battalion. And he shook his head and he just said, well, that'll never happen. And I was kind of taken aback. I was like, what do you mean? He says, well, you've already been an infantryman. You need to be able to serve anywhere in the Marine Corps. He said, so here's what you can expect. He said, if you become a first sergeant, I'm going to send you to either I&I duty or to the MLG. And then as a sergeant major, I will send you to a squadron or a recruiting station. And then maybe on your second assignment as a sergeant major, you can come back to the infantry. And I remember thinking, I'm not interested in that. Nothing against obviously we, Marines are Marines, right, and we need the whole MAGTF, but I just didn't want to go to like, say, a maintenance battalion, and this was at the height of the war too. And I thought, well, no, I need to stay with the infantry, recognizing I wasn't, I would never be kicking down doors again, but I thought, well, at least I could kind of remain among that tribe. And so, and I noticed too, now this is my opinion, this is probably divisive, but when I was coming up in the Marine Corps, there was an opinion, there was a perspective that your kind of first tier guys would become first sergeants and sergeant majors, and your second string guys would become master sergeants and master gunnies. I don't think that is true, but that was the perception when I was coming up. And then as the war really took off, right, the global war on terrorism, both Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw a massive shift in that. So I saw guys wanting to stay in their MOS because they felt it was very relevant and applicable to the fight that was going on. And like in my MOS, I recognized that a lot of talent was being siphoned off because some of my peers would go be gunners, right? Mm-hmm. And we needed them gunners and infantry warrant weapons officer. Some would go be first sergeants, sergeant majors. And so that doesn't mean the guys who stuck around to be master sergeants and master gunnies to be ops chiefs, it doesn't mean that they were lesser. It just meant there was a smaller gene pool from which to grow quality people. And for me personally, it was very important to stay in the infantry. So I remember that year that I said, okay, I'm going to put M on my fit rep to elect, to go the path of mass sergeant. And then I remember my boss says, hey, M and F, that doesn't mean male and female, right? I said, yes, I know. Yes, I want to stay in the infantry. And at that, my generation of folks, it was also perceived that it would take you longer to get promoted if you put M on your fit rep. So a lot of guys would put F on there because they would get looked at for both, but they would just take whichever one came quicker.
Right.
I
Which I
think
think is a lot of reasson too why people would also submit for warrant officer, because a lot of those boards run concurrently.
yeah. Yeah, and that kind of perspective I think has changed. I don't think that's necessarily the view of today's Marines, today's generations of Marines, but my generation, those preceding them, that perception was out there, and so so then when this article came out back in 2005, it was really divisive because the subtitle, he goes, is the 99 MOS outdated? And what Barry Walker was proposing is that we should have one track promotion, and you might go serve as the command senior enlisted advisor and then go right back to being the senior guy in your MOS. So for example, you might be the battalion sergeant major, and your next assignment, you're the regimental operations chief. And it would keep senior enlisted folks within their OC field as well. So we hear all kind of stories about a guy's a grunt, and then he pins on, sergeant major, and he goes to a squadron, and he has no idea how the air wing works,
Right.
And so he focuses on the Marine things, which is very important, the things that pertain to the organization, the institution, basic being Marine stuff, but might not really know about, aviation operations and the functions of aviation and all that.
Yeah, a couple comments there. Oh, Nancy, did you have something?
No, I was going to ask. So now, in retrospect, do you feel you made the right decision for you, Adam?
I do. I mean, I'm probably stubbornly and very pridefully, hopefully not arrogantly, but very pridefully and cocky about having been an infantryman. I really love that, but I will readily recognize that my peers who became like sergeants majors, they had more face time, exposure, and interaction with a broader audience of Marines. And so from the aspect of leadership, that is something to certainly be appreciated. And that's something that's you get by being a senior enlisted advisor of a unit. But by staying in my MOS and like my peers who have done that, you do have the opportunity to make great impacts across your OC field, right? So changing how things are done, like for example, with, I don't know, weapons or squad leaders, or just, how the infantry is integrated in the MAGTFs, you can affect your OC field in significant ways, but you may find yourself with less kind of face time and interacting with the young Marines. And I think some of the most valuable and appreciated experiences are those leadership things, the personal interactions. So
yeah, I found it interesting. I guess to go back just a little bit to what you were saying, Adam, and again, not being sort of being as an officer, I understand there's a bit of there's a little bit of arm's distance as far as one of the things, and kind of along the lines of what we were talking about last time you were on, Adam, about being, sort of tales from the smoke pit, and, me as the company commander needing, getting smoke pit intel, is that there's always sort of there's a bit of arm's distance between the enlisted and the officer ranks, and rightfully so. And so my perception of sort of the 89, 99 community might be, might be skewed, but hopefully of some import to this discussion. But coming from a smaller community like AAVs, I guess going back to your comment about the perception that the master sergeant track was for the guys who couldn't cut it, in the first sergeant track, and that your sergeants major or your all-stars and the master guns maybe were the B teamers. And I would say from a smaller community like Amtrackers, especially one that's so focused on technical expertise, oftentimes it was, I want to say it was the opposite, but there was the master guns were the dons of the mafia. They controlled a lot of the personnel movements, to include even officer assignments. They were the resident knowledge. They were the graybeards. Really not a lot happened in the AV community if the master gunner sergeants of the three battalions in the schoolhouse didn't swear off on it, And so they were always held in such high regard. And the sergeants major that came through, even if they were awesome, I had the distinct honor of serving with Sergeant Major Blackman. He was my first sergeant with Echo Company. But even as the sergeants major come through, it's so short, 4 years tops.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were mentioning, Adam, you're outside, even for a grunt, sort of the day-to-day of an Amtrak unit is so different. I can't imagine what it'd be like if you end up over at the wing. And so it was always so want to say transactional, but it was like, hey, if this guy's awesome, it sucks because he'll be leaving soon. And if he's a shithead, that's awesome because he's leaving soon.
Yeah.
And we'll still be here, you know. Anyhow, I don't know really where I was even going with that, but I did find it interesting. I don't think even in my short time that there was ever that perception, at least amongst AAV Master Gunnery Sergeants, that they were not the cream of the crop. And then a lot of time, I remember I had a gunny who put F on his fit rep, and they were like, "You disloyal bitch," because he was a really good am tracker.
Yeah.
They didn't want him.
Yeah. You know, it takes professionalism and humility on both sides. So I never had a bad relationship with my counterparts who were sergeants majors, but I have peers who did have them. And so, and I also have peers who had bad attitudes. They would say things like, they would, you know, kind of derisively refer to the sergeant major as the star sergeant, right? Or they, which, you know, and they would just kind of say things like, well, when he's gone, I can do his job, but when I'm gone, he can't do my job. And, you know, okay, we should be proud of what we do, but we don't have to be condescending. And so I never had that experience. I'm grateful for that. I worked with some very professional and engaging sergeant majors. And the ones I worked with, they would say things like, know your roles, know your holes, right? Like which fighting hole is yours. And so we would pair together well. But I remember I would have to kind of train and influence the staff officers come up behind me, because I would do things like, you know, sit on leadership panels or be a guest speaker at somewhere and do things. And I had a young staff sergeant, Gunny, asked me one time, he goes, why are you doing sergeant major stuff? And then I looked at him because I knew what he meant, right? He's like, why are you taking time to go teach a class at corporal's course, or, you know, to go to the staff academy and sit on a leadership panel? And I said, hey, listen, man, I apologize that you've had some examples who made you think that leadership belonged to one stovepipe in the Marine Corps, but I'm a staff non-commissioned officer, and no, leadership is what I do, and it doesn't matter what my OC field is. And it changed him, you know, it changed his attitude. And so I would always encourage my peers too, to like, hey, look, we got to be professional and we got to be competent, right? I can't be walking around like I could do what I want to, right? I can grow my hair longer. I don't have to PT as much. No, I need to be even more so like squared away, disciplined, and involved. Because I had, you know, buddies who were master gunnies who just wouldn't do things because they're like, who's going to hold me accountable? And it was like petty things, right? Like, I'm not going to formation, or like, you know, I'll run my PFT when I want to, you know, instead of like setting the example and being out front and having some exposure. And then, you know, like in my community, in the infantry, there's one master gunny and one master sergeant in a battalion. And there's one sergeant major and like 5 first sergeants. So the Marines would see more 89, 99s than they would, you know, the senior guy in their MOS. And so if you're the one master gunny, the one master, you really need to be super squared away, right? To kind of set the example for your OC field.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, I want to jump into there was a comment in the first page of this article I thought was hilarious, where Master Gun says, of course, he's talking about a conversation he had about like how, like, what are these criteria or what are these benchmarks that somebody has to meet, and then why are they selected one over the other? And so then finally the response was that if you didn't get promoted to first sergeant, it's because you didn't get enough votes on the board.
Yeah.
And so then he was like, well, what does that mean? Like, in his quote here is that, why would a cryogenic specialist decide whether an infantryman is promoted? And I thought that was such a good thing, having sat on a board myself. A lot of times I was like, I've got 5 minutes obviously to brief this Marine's career, but who the fuck am I to have, you know, whether he gets promoted or not, you know, sort of resting on my shoulders here. So yeah, anyways, Nancy, sorry, Nancy, what are some of your thoughts on this, you know, sort of seeing behind the curtain on how Marines get promoted?
Well, okay, so what are my thoughts? I have a stupid question. I'm just going to ask it, and I'm sure everybody out there listening is going to be like, oh my God. Is the Marine Corps different in the way this works? Is this not how it works in the Army, the Air Force, the Navy?
It is different. So for example, I have friends in the Army and they are just mystified at how we do business. So like the Army, they'll have a sergeant major, and he, you know, that's the rank for E9, but he might be the command sergeant major, right? Which means he's the senior enlisted advisor for that unit. Or he might be a sergeant major that's the ops sergeant, right? So he's like, the operations chief essentially. But I think what's distinct about them is if a guy becomes a command sergeant major, he's the command sergeant major of a unit from the community he came out of, right? So he's not going to be like an admin background and then become an infantry battalion sergeant major, right? He would be an infantry guy who becomes a sergeant major and he's served in an infantry battalion. And so I think that's one of the things that's different from us, because when we promote a Marine to 8999, they can serve anywhere in the Marine Corps, regardless of their background. And we've seen that, right? Guys, a cook, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're going to, Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines. You're going to the field. And the guy hasn't like gone to the field, maybe since he was a private.
Yeah. Yeah, since MCT in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Marine Corps is just like, nope. Hey, you're squared away. You'll figure it out, devil. And they generally do. So yeah, with the promotion system, I don't know. We just kind of have to trust that, hey, let me just be super squared away and just hope that everybody recognizes it and they'll vote for me when it's my time to come in zone.
Yeah, especially for an organization that almost prides itself on its pridefulness. It takes a ton of humility to be good when you enter into a situation like that. A friend of mine who was getting ready to deploy and wanted to take a certain first sergeant with them, but that first sergeant was in both first sergeants were on track for sergeant major, so that was almost a non-issue. The one had multiple deployments and was an infantryman. The other was an admin guy and needed a deployment to sort of like seal the deal on him picking up that star. And so my friend ended up with the other guy, and as you can imagine, it was this senior enlisted company advisor at the company level was awesome in garrison and was kind of a nightmare once they deployed.
Yeah, that can be tough. I had friends who had some, they got promoted to 8999 and they had some pretty wild experiences. But humility and then just being squared away is what helped them. So for example, my buddy was motor T and then he got sent to an infantry battalion. But when he'd go to the field, he would go from like fighting hole to fighting hole when they were the defense. And he would say things like, hey, explain your job to me, Marine. What are you doing here? And he would like kind of be self-appreciating, say, hey, look, and I love it when old staff NCOs speak in the third person. I think that's just a great thing. He would say, hey, Sergeant Major's a pogue, so show me what did you do here. And he's like, oh, good to go, Sergeant Major. This is my direction of fire, and this is my target reference point. And so he had humility and he showed interest in the Marines, and that really endeared him to that unit. And then likewise, I had a buddy who was a grunt who became a Sergeant Major and went to the Air Wing, and he like called for a formation, wanted everybody there. But in the Air Wing, like the maintenance cycle and the ATO, right? The schedule, that drives everything. So the maintenance chiefs kind of run the Air Wing. Mm-hmm. And so these master gunnies and master sergeants came back and said, hey, Sergeant Major, you can't just tell us you're having a formation at 1300 and you want everybody there. And so my buddy said it was a really shock to him because, on the ground side, you say what's going to happen, and everybody stops what they're doing and makes it happen. So he said, I had to learn to ask the maintenance chiefs, hey, I need to pass some word to the Marines. What's a good time that I can see everyone? And then they would offer him like a port and starboard, schedule, and it'd say, hey, you can talk to this crew, but you're gonna have to come in at night because we have night crew. And so you're gonna have to pass the word at 08 and then again at 2000. And he would say, okay, good to go. I'll be there. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I can imagine with the wing stuff, but so one of the things we're talking though is this. So what is mentioned in this article about having a single sort of E9 track where you would almost, if I'm understanding his point correctly, is that you would just basically get assigned where the Marine Corps needed you, regardless of whether you were more technically proficient or more administratively focused, right? Is that sort of what he was getting at?
Well, I think his recommendation was basically everyone gets promoted in their MOS, and then there's a board process to make you the senior enlisted advisor. But that's kind of you do that assignment, and then you're serving in your primary MOS again, right?
So much more like how the Army does it then.
I think that's what he's recommending. Yeah. And so is that the right answer? I don't know. But what I will say with this whole E-8 redesignation, right now, I don't know what the numbers are, but we've kind of read the article about the one master sergeant who was selected to become a first sergeant. My understanding is that in the coming year, they're going to also have kind of a parallel effort. So a first sergeant could apply to become a master sergeant, right? And cross deck back and forth. And How's this going to work out? I don't know. It's probably more relevant that the Marines that are serving in uniform today comment on it. But what I will say is this: is the Marine Corps identified 4 lines of effort in their talent management program. Right, one of them was to rebalance recruiting and retention, to optimize the employment of talent, to have multiple pathways to career success, and to modernize or to modern talent management digital tools. So they're trying something. And so whether or not it's they're kind of in the black, as to use the old markership term, or
Right.
not, I commend them for trying something different. And for allowing Marines to have a little bit more say in the direction of their path. Because ultimately, we're all going to receive orders, right? We go where the Marine Corps wants us to go, and we do what we're
Yeah,
assigned to do. But if a Marine can elect their path and then kind of get what they want, they also serve with a little bit more enthusiasm. And
sure.
the Marine Corps is a core of Marines, and it's all about people. So if you can both have mission accomplishment and troop welfare at the same time, then you kind of got some magic going on there.
Yeah, I think I'm totally with you. I applaud the Marine Corps trying to think outside the box. Um, and of course, that's the preparatory phrase for a butt here.
Yeah.
Um, I do wonder, one is this in response to something, or is this just a really good idea? And what I mean by that is, were there senior enlisted advisors, both at the master sergeant and first sergeant level, that like were having buyer's remorse and that was affecting retention of senior enlisted leaders?
So anything that I could offer to that question would be kind of just an anecdote. So I know many people who selected to become 8999s and then regretted it because of
Oh,
their assignment or because of kind of the culture. And this is guys I knew from like kind of the ground community, right? And
sure.
then they went to serve elsewhere and they just didn't find it quite as satisfying. Now, again, that's just some people I know and some opinions. So I don't know that that impacted retention, like kind of on a scale that's measurable, or that affected this. I would guess there's something to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I wonder too if and so it seems that almost is a almost a one-way street, right? So because I've heard that also that like, oh man, once I went toward the diamond and especially towards the star, it was like, what is happening? But you don't see that, hear that quite as much. And I think because kind of like you said, like there's two things Marines hate, and that is
Yeah,
the way things are and change. But a
yeah,
lot of the times it's like, well, I'm in my community, I'm in my comfort zone, I'm around my people. So even if I am curious about what else is out there, this is good. This is, this is my happy place. I'm around
yeah.
my people. So maybe there's not so much. And so the reason I mention that is that I wonder if having this ability to sort of lat move would, if it's going to create a gap in the first sergeant's major community. I don't know.
Maybe I think it's good if they have it kind of you can go either direction, right? So it's 2 parallel programs. I think that's a good thing because there are some people who may go down a certain track and then feel as though they're not being as efficient. So, for example, a Marine can make it up to E-8, but because let's say they've been out of their MOS quite a bit, right? So they may lack technical proficiency to be a good master sergeant, right? Because maybe they did, tour on the drill field and tour on MSG. They're super squared away. They're great about leadership, but maybe, they were electronic maintenance guy and they just didn't get the quals or the experience they need.
Right.
So maybe for them being, an 8999 is better for them because they focus on Marine things, right? The organization, the culture, conduct, good order, discipline, and that they're very useful there. Likewise, you may have someone who, grew up in a particular MOS that was technical, but they wanted they kind of burnt out, always working in the same units, the same OC field, the same kind of deployment cycle. So they know by becoming an 8999, they can serve all over the MAGTAF. But then they may get out there and say, you know what? Maybe I'm in over my head in this environment, and I actually probably should have stayed back in back in my old OC field. And so I think giving the Marines opportunity to maybe, cross stick from, this redesignation program, I think there's a potential for it to be to find Marines who are more satisfied with their career path by doing this.
Yeah, I personally I love it. Again, like I think that you hit the nail on the head that there it just offers a level of career flexibility that we didn't have, when we were in or when we were wearing the uniform. And I do have some questions about that, but again, I'm trusting, as a member of the cult, I'm trusting the cult that there's been analytics that's looked into this. My only other question about it is one of the big things through force design and talent management was retaining those first termers and having a more senior, body of the core and not just be, mainly an organization of 19 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
This sort of thing, although I think, again, useful, necessary, and I applaud it, I'm not sure how that addresses, though, the first termer issue, right? Like, and like you were mentioning, Adam, is it gives you something to look forward to, but really for a Marine who's on his first tour wondering if he should re-enlist, what's going to happen to him as an E-8, E-9, I'm not sure is going to factor into that calculus, right?
Yeah, but there's other efforts that are focused on retaining, maturing the force in the first termers. But what I think will do is give them examples that the Marine Corps does want to modernize. The Marine Corps is willing to entertain things that are, to use the phrase outside of the box, but to do things outside of the box in order to kind of modernize and remain relevant. And so, because I remember coming up my generation, we were told things like, hey, and again, as a grunt saying, hey, if you go work at the School of Infantry, you'll never have a chance to be a first sergeant or sergeant major because you'll be too much time in your MOS. You need to go to the drill field or recruiting duty. And so there was this belief and perception that you had to leave your MOS. And at times it was even true. So for example, when I was coming up, my peers who became gunners, the guys who were some of the best gunners actually were passed over for promotion to gunnery sergeant the first time because they had worked at places like TBS, the School of Infantry, Bridgeport, places where they were instructors and they were gaining proficient skills. But those assignments weren't seen as a special duty assignment, right? Like recruiting duty, drill field, and MSG. So the guys who went to recruiting duty, MSG, and MSG in the drill field, they would get promoted to gunny quicker than the other guys. The other guys would get gunny on their second look, but the very career path that made them so good as gunners, as infantry warrant officers, is the thing that caused them to be delayed in getting promoted to gunnery sergeant. And they had to be gunnery sergeants in E7 before they could apply to be a gunner and infantry warrant officer. So, so I always thought there was something kind of broken about that because when we were platoon sergeants together, these guys, they were technically and tactically better platoon sergeants than I was. I recognize that, right? Because I went off on recruiting duty and they went and they were instructing, the whole time. And so I think maybe there's a little bit more balance in that now, but for my generation, that was a very frustrating thing to see happening.
And I really appreciate your time, Adam. I hate to just keep belaboring this, but it's super fascinating to me. Did you think, because when did you step on the yellow footprints again?
June of 94.
94. Okay. So yeah, we're definitely that similar generation because I was 97 at OCS. So, how much of the war, how much did that change sort of the promotion paradigm? Because I know for me, from the officer standpoint, it completely opened everything up. Obviously, we were having force increases. We went to 202K.
That's right.
Yeah, if you could fog a mirror, you're getting promoted.
Yeah, it did change a lot because like you said, we went to 202K thousand. So we stood up like 3 new infantry battalions, for example, right? And so I think people did start to get promoted quicker. Was one thing, and the other thing is people decided to stay in their OC field a little bit more, I think, right? They said, right, no, now, I saw this in the infantry, like, no, the infantry is super engaged. It's, this is where I want to stay and I want to remain relevant and I want to remain, kind of remain in the middle of it. So more of my generation began to put M on their fit rep to be ops chiefs, right? To be master sergeants or master gunnies instead of becoming first sergeants or sergeant majors. again, that's my opinion and my experience. Now, there's other guys who were pretty tired of deploying, and they're like, "Look, the only way I can kind of get out of the grunts is to put on F, and maybe I can go to a different part of the Marine Corps and catch my breath."
Yeah. Or at least if I deploy, I'll have plenty of defects around me and not having to worry about ESCO, wag bag shitter.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good perspective. Yeah. I know, because we had a similar thing, for Amtrakers. It was like, hey, don't just go straight, don't just stay in the 29 in the 29 area and in Camp Delmar, where you're just going from a line company to schoolhouse to AVTB and then back to a line company and just sort of doing all that stuff that you need to get out there to diversify yourself. But yeah, and then once the war happened, it was just like, fuck it, man. You want to stick around, we'll even throw a bonus at you or whatever.
That's right.
Oh man, that's so cool. Well, so what do you think then, with some of these proposed changes, let's say we go, full 30-inch step on allowing Marines to sort of transition between Master Sergeant, First Sergeant. Do you think there's a cap then? Like, hey, once you go E9 though, you're stuck. Like once you're a Master Guns or once you're a Sergeant Major, that's it? Or do you see some fluidity there as well?
That's an interesting question. My instinct would say that you basically could apply for this once and then you're kind of done.
Okay.
I don't know that. That's just my guess.
Yeah.
But I think what's going to be important is that the culture, right, is going to have to embrace this. And I say that because, for example, go back to our discussion about gunners, right? An infantry weapons officer, 0306. E7s and E8s can apply for that. Right. So that means you have to be like an infantry guy and then you apply to be an infantry warrant officer. But if you were a first sergeant who had an infantry background, so you're an E8, you can still apply to put in to be a gunner. But it is very looked down upon within that community, meaning like they feel like you're being okay, this is a broad generalization, but I saw this happen when I was coming up. A first sergeant who had been a grunt decided like, hey, you know what? I'm not really loving this first sergeant thing, so I'm eligible. I'm going to put in to be a gunner. And then he was kind of blackballed, right? So the senior sergeants majors and folks kind of in his sphere would really talk down to him. And the guy I think just got really discouraged. He didn't get selected, and so now he's still in that community as a 89, 99. Brutal. But they're like, this is the guy that tried to jump ship. And so there was a cultural looking as though there was some sort of I don't know, like he's a traitor or something like that. So culturally, the Marine Corps needs to kind of embrace this, right? It needs to encourage, hey, if a Marine is entertaining it, leaders sit down and talk to them. Why are you entertaining this? Is it because you're going to be more efficient? You're going to be happier? Is this better for the Marine Corps? And so I think folks need to have an open, kind of an open mind about this thing and let it be tested out.
Yeah, that's it. That I think that's right. I think the you get one shot at it, but yeah, I do agree that culturally we need to have a more open mind. I know us Gen Xers, man, we were so indoctrinated. And it was interesting, for people that kind of grew up on Rage Against the Machine to be as indoctrinated we are is pretty hilarious. So what do you think is the culture change then? Is that more of a drip feed, or is there an actual thing we can institute sort of systematically that can encourage that change?
Yeah, that's tough because again, we don't like the way things are, and we don't like change. So maybe kind of the drip effect, because people are leaders impact other people directly, right? So it's not generally policies that change people, it's that human interaction. So leaders at the most senior levels are just going to have to start kind of speaking this and sharing it and encouraging it, right, and affirming it. And it starts at the top, and I mean, it's encouraging things, right? You got somebody in the Marine Corps coming out and saying, hey, this is a great program, and we're going to try to he stated that, hey, by next year we're going to introduce a pilot program to allow first sergeants to apply for selection of master sergeants, right, to give greater flexibility. And so the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps is saying it, so the senior enlisted leaders that are subordinate to him need to get on board with the same thing, right? What we don't need is to kind of get divisive into two camps, right? And just be opposing it.
Yeah. I didn't really face too many of these sort of perceived existential crises I think the biggest one was when I was I think I picked up first lieutenant at the time, but going from the new camouflage. What's going to be our new uniform, our utility uniform?
Yeah.
And like, oh, Digi, what the hell? And then it was
Yeah.
amazing. But I think that was the biggest one while I was in uniform. But anyhow, so what do you think then, as I guess this is a pilot program or proof of concept, what would you advise for a Marine right now, a gunnery sergeant who's looking at their fitness report, knowing that if this kicks off, maybe you can do a little more discovery learning rather than having to make a decision that's going to affect the rest of your, depending on how quickly you get promoted, it could be 10 years of your career.
Yeah, basically, I would say they just need. This sounds so bland. They need to be good Marines, and so what I mean by that is they need to be very squared away in all Marine things, and they need to be proficient in their MOS. Right? They can't focus on one or the other. So we just have these phrases that we would say things like, "Motivation is a haircut," and discipline is a PFT, or leadership is a PFT. We just kind of say these things to say if you were just squared away, you're going to get promoted, and a lot of times that did happen, but like for example, and I'm not going to pick on any MOS, but let's say, I'm in Intel, I can't just focus so much on being proficient as an Intel guy that, I kind of let my grooming my grooming standards or my physical fitness go by the wayside, because what's most important is that I'm proficient as as an intelligence Marine. Likewise, I can't just be, super squared away. I would get my PME, I get my shooting, I do all my annual training requirements because I want to get promoted, but I'm really not good at my MOS and I just want to get promoted and leave my MOS. The Marines have to put tremendous effort and professionalism into both efforts. I saw guys who wanted to leave the grunts and they were very squared away. They did all the things they thought they needed to get promoted to first sergeant, right? They had PME, they had special duty assignments, they were super squared away, and they didn't get selected to first sergeants. And so they became the senior enlisted guys in their MOS, but they actually weren't very good at their MOS. And so that's terrible.
Yeah, that's really good. That's so good. Again, so much of my experience it was the war, but man, it really affected our ability to do stuff in garrison, and like it was audible pack dropping. Like guys are so singularly focused and so squared away while we were deployed, and then you just hear like the
Oh yeah,
the safety straps coming off, man, and they were the biggest pieces of shit, man, in garrison.
yeah.
And rightfully so. The Lance Corporal is on his 4th deployment. Like I get it, he's like facing serious burnout, but
Yeah,
that is such a good advice about
yeah, you actually got to be well-rounded, and I guess this is a pretty good time for a little plug here, right? So coming up in Leatherneck, we have Lessons from the Smoke Pit, which is the quarterly column that I author, and I think the next one is going to be called Marine First, right? And it talks about how important it is to be a good Marine, basic on those little things. So you can't just say, "Hey, I'm just here break glass in case of war," and that's when I'm gonna care, and that's when I'm gonna shine. No, you got to shine and have disciplined habits of action. That has to be your character, your conduct, and that's the culture. And so you got to be all Marine all the time, not just like when you want to or when it's cool or when it's exciting. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, yeah. So that will be coming out in March for our O3, the Leathernecks doing the O3 month thing, and that'll be coming out on the socials and stuff too. It'll be really cool. Well, Adam, man, this is really great. Yeah, I do want to just sort of dovetail and maybe get some final comments from you on what you were talking about, not just being well-rounded and not just being, a great garrison Marine or just a great, technically proficient Marine, but, finding that synergy between the two. But I also think for those who are looking to get in, because either one, whether you go F or M, or maybe they even take that out, if we want to just go a single 89-99 track, but is that you've got to practice early how to do all, because you can individually, I think it's easy to do both, be a squared away, well-rounded Marine and be, technically shit hot, but to get other people to do that too, obviously we lead by example, and that works for those in your peripheral, but to actually step out in front and demand that of the people around you more. It's really hard for peers, but it's not always everybody's thing. And at least from what I can see from the emerging generation is they're not huge on stepping out in front on a face-to-face personal level. And so definitely need to take all of those things you do as an individual and try to instill those in those around you and get in practice
Hmm.
instilling, right? Because it's not so simple. It's not just saying, oh, when I pick up Gunny, then they'll have to follow me because I'm an E7. You're not going to have those sort of reps and sets to really be good at it, even and you'll kind of invalidate yourself almost, right? I mean, am I making too much out
Yeah,
of it?
you have to be competent, and you have to kind of set the example. But also you have to realize, the Marine Corps, they teach us in boot camp. They have two Marines together. One of them is in charge, right?
Right,
So
right.
so we instill this idea that every Marine is a leader, and then particularly when you get tied to certain ranks. And so I can remember being a young staff NCO, like a new staff sergeant, and it was the expectation that I made corrections. Now, personally, I wasn't interested in like correcting everybody who did an infraction, but I had this first sergeant that was really stern, and if he saw me not making a correction, he would wear me out, right? So there's a little bit of like pain retains. It's like, okay, well, I don't want first sergeant to yell at me, so I'm going to go yell at this corporal, right? The corporal who's doing something wrong, not just like
Right, right.
not just letting anger out,
Like, hey, come here, devil.
yeah, like, hey, come here. And then, you have to develop your own style. You don't just knife hand and yell at everyone, because then, yeah, they may get corrected while they're under your observation, but you don't actually change behavior. But you engage Marines, and there's methods for doing that. Things like, hey, we don't do that, right? So you're instilling unit pride in there. Hey, this is third platoon. This is Alpha Company. We don't do that. So you do have to make those corrections. But I remember, like, being a young leader, I'm like, okay, I don't really want to make these corrections, but it is my responsibility. Staff NCOs are keepers of the culture, right? This individual that I'm observing is violating, discipline or habits of action or established standards. So it's my responsibility to correct him, whether or not I'm interested in it or whether I want to or not. And so then I did that because I'm supposed to. I'm obligated to do that. And also, first sergeant's going to wear me out if I don't do that, right? So if that first sergeant hadn't been there, maybe I would have let it slack, and I would have just continued to grow in a certain amount of complacency or apathy. But because I was held to a standard, then I fulfilled that role. And then as I matured, I began to find effective methods for doing that balance with kind of who I was as a leader, as my personality,
Mm,
and in a way that would, and there's some trial and failure, sometimes
sure.
it doesn't always work out, because Marine Corps is full of all kinds of personalities, believe it or not. It's not just all, we're not all the same in that respect. But you just have to set the example, and you have to be engaged. And so one of my mentors used to tell me that, what you may lack in education, training, or experience, you can make up for in hustle if you care, right? So you just got to really
Oh,
put
that's good.
put the effort out there.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think for all of my foibles, I was always marching at a full 30-inch step, sometimes in the wrong direction, oftentimes in the wrong direction. But
Yeah.
damn if I was motivated in the way I was going.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm very motivated to be doing it.
Yeah, so happy to be part of the team. Um, all right, Adam. Well, this is really great. Thank you so much for spending time. I know we started off talking about this new promotion system, but I think we just had a more than anything had a good discussion about leadership.
I
And I've
appreciate
always
it.
been really interested and fascinated because I had so many great senior enlisted that mentored me and helped me along, um, that I always wondered, kind of what's going through their head. That I mean,
Yeah.
they're really awesome and they're really being very nice and really caring enough to take the time to help me. And so I just wondered where that comes from. And so thank you for sort of
No. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think it's really a healthy thing when a Marine officer asks for the input of a staff officer and they listen to it, because some don't. I'm convinced that senior officers who maybe have a bad opinion or relationship of staff NCOs, I trace that back to when they were lieutenants, they had a bad interaction with their first platoon sergeant. And so it's very important to be engaged and for staff NCOs to invest in officers. I think that's huge. I had a friend once who went to go teach at West Point, right? He was a Marine officer, and we had gone to school together and spent some time together. He emailed me once and he says, "Hey, I'm teaching a class about senior enlisted, and I'd like your opinion. What do you expect from officers?" And this was a buddy of mine, so I emailed him back. I said, "Not much." And then I just did it for pure humor. And then the next day,
Right.
I came back and I wrote an essay. I said, "Hey, sir, first off, thank you for asking that." And then kind of laid out some things about a staff to an officer relationship. And so it's a very healthy thing if an officer has an open ear and a willingness to listen to the input of a staff to, because then that officer has to go and they have to actually make the decision, right? They may take the input or not, but to at least to listen to it and value it before they make a decision is a very healthy thing. And because we recognize as staff that the officers they have a great burden on them, that burden of command or of leadership, because failure will reside with them. They will very quickly give the accolades to success to the enlisted Marines and to the Marines they're leading. But when there's a failure, they have to shoulder that failure. And I think sometimes enlisted guys, we kind of forget that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. This is really I mean, I think there's just a lot of life lessons here in this, but for those listening, and you're interested in seeing like what happens to Marine Corps E-7 Gunnery Sergeant as he's about to get promoted and what that's going to look like. I'm very interested in see what the Marine Corps is going to do with this. I think it's a great start, if nothing else, but I think there's some legs here that's going to help with maybe not necessarily retention, because a lot of times I think once you're in, you're in. But I think it's going to help with quality of life. And, I think we talked to someone at Modern Day Marine who was big on, happiness equating to proficiency level, and not like this sort of like touchy-feely, glitter and rainbows happiness, but like job satisfaction and being fulfilled. And so I think this is going to just do a lot to enhance that.
And one other thing I'll say is the Marine Corps might want to consider just allowing folks to opt out of promotion, right? So, for example, at certain levels, but like I've known folks who were happy being gunnies and they didn't want to get promoted again because it affected where they were able to serve and how they were able to serve. And so maybe just let a guy stay as a gunny and stay in for 25 years, there may be value in that.
No, I think there is. I think what it always reminds me, there's a character in Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire, who had been, essentially their version of a squad leader for like 25 years. He's like old as shit. And he would I think he even grew up with like King Leonidas, but yet here he's just like a squad leader. He's like, I love it here.
Yeah, I think the Brits do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, Adam, man, thank you so much for taking time on a Friday morning to talk to us. I just love picking your brain. I can't wait to see what you got coming up for Tales from the Smoke Pit. So we'll look for that next month in the 03 issue. So thanks again, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Super fun.
Hoorah.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.